Hello, beautiful people. Aloha, welcome to the Touchful podcast. Today's episode is going to be about the darkness, lessons from the darkness. My experience of a solo darkness retreat when I spent 6 nights, 5 full days in a complete and total darkness. And recently I made a live stream on Instagram sharing my experience. And now I'm bringing this live stream here for you to listen to. So I will be sharing some stories from the darkness, some poems that I wrote in the darkness. I will be answering some of your questions that you are asking me regarding this experience. And most importantly, I will be bringing here all the profound wisdom, all the remembrance, all the deep insights that I received while being fully immersed in this experience. I wish you a beautiful time listening to this episode, and thank you for you. At the beginning of October, I spent around 130 hours in complete darkness. And I would like to share this story here today. So I will tell you about how I prepared, and if I prepared at all, and what kind of experience it was for me. I will tell you a little bit about these practical things that so many people were asking me about, like how were you eating and how it was to be in complete darkness and what changed in my life, how I was spending my days in darkness. And if you will have any questions during watching this live stream, then you can just always drop them in the comments and I will pick them up and I will answer as well. So starting from the start, it was, I think, about 2 years ago when I heard from my very good friend about a darkness retreat. She shared with me her experience of 4 days in darkness and how it was for her. And I remember listening to her story, having this very strong recognition, this very strong feeling that I want to do it. I need to do it. I've got to do it. And it felt like I was almost reminding myself, like, oh yes, this is something that I want to do. So I didn't have this reaction to her story. I didn't have this reaction of like, oh my God, this is like so intriguing and so new, and I feel deep inside some sort of curiosity and maybe I should do it myself. As she was sharing her story of darkness, I had this just a brief thought, just a remembrance. I was like, of course that this is something I need to do in this lifetime. I almost forgot. So it was about 2 years ago. And then I just put that as an intention on my wish list, as a memory from the future, as I call it, something that I will do in the next year. And I remember that I contacted the venue, the place that I wanted to do the darkness retreat in. I contacted them for the first time about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I think. And they didn't have any availability at that time, which I am now so very grateful for, because I know, having this experience now, that last year at that time, I was completely not ready for it. I thought that I was ready. My mind was thinking that I was ready when I contacted the place. But now I know that with who I was at that time, with what kind of practice I had at that time, what kind of relationship with myself I had at that time, what kind of relationship with the divine I had at that time, I was not ready. So, like with everything in my life, and I want to say in our lives because I believe that it's a general truth, but I'm going to speak for myself. Like with everything in my life, it came at a perfect timing. So I didn't prepare myself per se in any particular way. Some people, some of my friends, when I was sharing this story with them, they were asking me, did you prepare yourself somehow? Like, how can you prepare yourself for such an experience? And as I started to think about it, I realized that I didn't prepare myself in any special way, in any particular way. I feel that my life, the kind of life that I have, the kind of this everyday grounded spirituality that I have, and especially the last year of my life, was my preparation. So right before the retreat, I didn't do anything special. I didn't do anything different. And most important, I didn't read much about other people's experiences. I didn't watch much. You can find all kinds of stories like the one that I'm sharing with you. You can find it on Instagram, on YouTube, people sharing their experiences of darkness retreat. I didn't want to hear any of this. I wanted to go with as much like openness as possible without being influenced by other people's stories. So if you are thinking about doing darkness retreat, you can ask yourself now, do you want to listen to my story? And the answer might be yes, I'm genuinely curious, I want to listen to your story. Or you might actually realize, if you are thinking of doing it yourself, that maybe you don't want to listen to my story now because you want to come with this total openness of the mind and openness of the heart without being influenced by other people's stories. So I came to the place, and I will tell you a little bit how it looked in practice, so you have some sort of an idea of like how it was and what it was. So I entered the place of the retreat, the room that was my retreat place. I entered it on, let's call it day zero after the sunset. So it was already getting dark outside, and I entered the room with a person who was my guide during the retreat, and she explained everything to me, and then she left me alone in the room. So I was retreating completely alone. This is also something that people ask me, like, were you alone? Were there other people with you? I was alone in a special room, in a special place that was created with an intention of this being a place for darkness retreats. And I had some time with a couple of candles around just to unpack, just to settle in, just to look around, just to get familiar with the place, where things are, before I blew the candles off and went into complete darkness. And the darkness was full and total and complete. So again, when I share this story with my friends, some of them ask me like, but after some time your eyes adjusted a little and you could see something, right? And I was like, no, it was total 100% pitch black darkness. Nothing. My eyes didn't adjust after some time, and I was not able to see anything, like in a physical sense. I was not able to see the physical objects. Nothing, zero, nada, zero, complete darkness. And that's the whole point of this experience. I was being taken care of in a sense that I received food twice a day. I could speak to the person that was bringing me food. I could ask for a talk. If I had a need to, which I didn't, I wanted to be as much with myself and in just like kind of like complete separation. And I was doing everything in darkness. And people ask me, so what were you doing there? And I was doing all kinds of things. So the point of this retreat, of course, is to go into your own deep practice. And I really believe that this kind of experience would be extremely difficult for people who don't have any sort of practice of being with themselves, sitting with themselves, any kind of meditative practice. It doesn't have to be super elaborate or super like extensive, but I really do believe that that was at least my case, that you need to have some sort of established practice with yourself, being able to sit with yourself, experience yourself for an extended period of time. So in the darkness, I was meditating, I was doing yoga, I was talking a lot. I had these conversations that I sometimes share part of these conversations here with you. I call them conversations with love. So I was talking with myself, or with God, with divine, with love, however you want to call it. I was singing mantras. I was practicing Ho'oponopono, so the Hawaiian practice of forgiveness and reconciliation. I was writing poetry. Yes, I was writing in the darkness. You can do that easily, or maybe not easily, but it is possible to do it. And I want to read for you a couple of the poems that I wrote down in the darkness, because I feel that they carry the essence of my experience. And I had also all kinds of like normal, ordinary experiences. You know, I was brushing my teeth and eating and taking a shower. And a very special thing for me was that when I entered the darkness, so on day 0, that was the day when my bleed started, when my menstruation started. So I was also menstruating in the darkness, which I was extremely grateful for, because that was the experience that I wanted to have, to go into the darkness, to go into the cave, and to be able to connect to my bleed, to my menstruation, to my femininity, to my cycle. Before blowing off the candle, I wrote down a couple of words. I wrote down my intentions, and I want to read them to you. So they are in Polish, in my mother tongue, but I will be just translating as I read. So my intentions were deep and true rest, slowness, courage in the face of the unknown, tenderness towards myself, connecting to my femininity, feeling and being, truth, emerging, my heart cracking open like a chestnut falling from a tree, forgiveness, light and lightness, service, and accepting my bigness. And now when I read this, I feel that all this happened for me, and so much more. Some of you asked me if I was afraid, or you even assumed that I was afraid of darkness, and you were asking me, okay, what did you do to not be afraid, to stop being afraid, and how it looked when you stopped being afraid? And the truth is that I was not afraid. I was experiencing all kinds of feelings, sensations, emotions, thoughts, state of mind, state of body, comfort, discomfort, pain, ecstasy, and everything in between. But I was not afraid, because I felt that there was nothing to be afraid of. There was nothing in that darkness to be afraid of. But again, I feel that it is partly because over the 15 years, more than 15 years of my spiritual development and the spiritual path and self-growth and self-development, I have developed quite a solid relationship with myself. I have a memory, for example, of me going to Hawaii for the first time. It was 2018. And I went there completely alone. And I remember that as much as this experience was beautiful for me, it was also extremely difficult, because at that time, 7 years ago, it was simply extremely difficult for me to be with myself. to spend time with myself, to feel myself, to experience myself. Or even in, what was it, 2020, 2021, I did a retreat where I spent 4 days in a yurt. I was alone, without phone, without other people. And even then, a couple of years ago, that experience was very difficult for me to meet myself, because this is the whole point of experiences like this, experiences of separation, isolation, seclusion. To me, the whole point of this experience is to be able to experience yourself, to feel yourself, to meet yourself, and to go through all kinds of feelings and all phases and layers of meeting yourself. And I remember that even these couple of years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, when I went for 4 days into a yurt, it was not a darkness retreat. I spent 4 days inside the yurt by the fire, tending to the fire and being with myself. Still, I remember how difficult that was for me, to be without any external stimulation, to be without people, to be without my phone, to be without anything that could reflect myself back to me. And this time, the experience of darkness was completely different for me. And one of the biggest realizations, like sort of like remembrance and confirmation that I got from darkness, one of the most beautiful lessons and these reminders, was how crucial it is for us humans, for our development, for our growth, for our sanity, for our connection, how important it is to spend time alone, to spend time without consuming anything, without having any external stimulation. And sure, what I did was quite extreme. I didn't have other people around me. I didn't have my phone. I didn't have my eyes. I couldn't see anything. So that was, some people could say that was quite extreme. But you can do it. We can all do it to a lesser degree on everyday basis. And I realized how absolutely crucial, how non-negotiable it is to give yourself time when you do not consume anything external. And by that, I mostly mean time without your phone, time when you do not listen to a podcast or audiobook, you do not watch TV, you do not read a book, you do not get other people's voice in your head, you do not get other people's words, you do not get anything from the outside, but you are with yourself. And it can be as simple as I did today, going for a walk for half an hour into the nature without a phone, leaving my phone at home. This extreme experience of being deprived of stimulation, including the stimulation that we have all the time, which is from what we see, this really showed me that this is a non-negotiable thing. If you want to be free, you need to give yourself that and learn to spend time with yourself. Because this is, I don't want to say the only, but kind of, this is the most natural way to feel yourself, to hear yourself, to hear this voice inside you that is the voice that I call the truest, the deepest, the most. The voice of God, the voice of intuition, of your higher self, the voice of love, however you want to call it. If I saw it in my real life example, that if I keep filling myself up constantly with information, with input from other people, then I really give myself zero chance of being able to hear that voice within, if I only get all the voices without. And, I am pretty like self-aware, and I really take care of what I listen to and what I watch. So even the things that I watch and I listen to are usually like some beautiful things about spirituality and self growth and things from my mentors and just really beautiful stuff that helps me in life. But still, I need a break. We all need a break from getting this constant stream of other people's voices and other people's thoughts in your head. And you are also asking me what kind of, what changed in me, what kind of things stayed with me after this experience, after the darkness. And this is definitely one of these things, that I became even more aware and even more radical with how absolutely important and non-negotiable it is to spend time with myself. There's this famous sentence of mine: the closer I am to myself, the closer I am to other people. And that is one of the things that darkness gave me. So much intimacy with myself that now I feel closer to life, closer to other people than I was before. So even if you are not planning a darkness retreat, you don't want to do it, or maybe you want to do it, but sometime in the future, there is one little lesson from darkness that you can take now, and that is to learn to spend time with yourself without any external stimulation, without a phone, without television, without radio, without podcast, without other people talking to you, without reading, without getting any external stimulation. Allow yourself to feel yourself. And it's going to be huge. To me, it is still huge. And I feel that I'm on this path for such a long time. And still, each and every time when I can experience this, and in the darkness, it was taken to a quite extreme level. Still, I find it extraordinary. And this is where this famous phrase that I feel is so overused, the phrase that all the answers are within, this is where it really makes sense, because they really are within. But if you don't give yourself a chance to hear them, then it doesn't matter if they are within. And you're going to constantly look around you for recipes for happiness from other people, and you will never find it there. So you can ask yourself how easy or how difficult it is for you to be with yourself, to sit with yourself, to spend 1 hour with yourself without doing anything, not cleaning your house, not doing the laundry, but just being with yourself, not even meditating, just being with yourself. The amount of me meditating in darkness, it was not that big. I had sessions of meditation and I had one of the most beautiful and profound meditations there. But I was doing all kinds of other things there with this intention of being with myself and being with everything that is, being with everything that emerges from myself, from within. I want to read for you one of the poems that I wrote in the darkness. Again, I wrote it in Polish and I'm going to translate it as I read it. In darkness, everything is equally sacred. Brushing your teeth, meditating, pooping, singing mantras, and constantly looking around, trying to find my lost scrunchie. Everything is equally important. And if I could distill my experience of darkness into one sentence, it would be this: everything is equally important. Everything is equally sacred. And it's something that I have never felt before to such degree. I had this mental, like a mental concept of that, mental realization of this phrase, that the only time that we have is now, and whatever you do, put yourself into it, and that life is made of these little moments and all kinds of these things. But in darkness, I experienced for the first time to such degree that really everything is equally important. And it is only my human mind, my human perception of life, of experiences, that gives them some sort of like levels that in my human eyes, meditation, the time spent on meditation or on some sort of spiritual practice, is more important than time spent on washing the dishes, or time spent on cuddling with my cat is more important than tying my shoelaces. That we have these things as humans, I definitely do, of this like grading experiences. But what happened for me in the darkness is that it dissolved, and really there was no difference in importance between various experiences. Brushing my teeth was equally important as sitting in a prayer, or eating was equally sacred as the most profound meditations that I had there. Everything is equally important. Every moment carries this seed of sacredness inside it. Everything is equally important. You can take it as a code, as a statement of truth, as a mantra, and say it to yourself and see how it lands. Everything is equally important. You notice how sometimes you want to like jump through some things, some moments in your day, because they feel boring or they feel insignificant, or you do them in a completely automated way and you don't even notice it. I do that too. We all do that. That's a part of our human experience. That I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do this real quick so I can do something else that I like more. Or I will just do this in a way that I don't even remember that I was doing it, so I can later focus on something that feels better, nicer, more profound, that something that has more value. And how would it be to see every moment as a moment of equal value, no matter what you do? Because this is the only moment that is. And I know that you've heard it 100 times, and I did too. But once I started to really allow myself not to rush through things, because I didn't need to be anywhere else. I had all the time in the world. So I didn't need to rush through things. I didn't need to rush through cleaning my face. I didn't need to rush through eating. I didn't need to rush through undressing or getting dressed. Not to mention that it was almost impossible because I couldn't see anything. So I had to do this slower. And because I didn't need to rush, I need to do everything with a lot of awareness, then that brought a realization in me that It can be sacred. Folding my clothes in the evening before going to sleep can be as sacred as sitting and praying or meditating or doing mantras or doing any kind of other practice that feels sacred to me. That brushing my teeth can be meditation if I am not rushing through it, if I am not mentally and energetically trying to be somewhere else. And to me, often it is quite difficult to experience this on an everyday basis. But in darkness, I really had nowhere else to go, nowhere to be, nothing else to do other than being there. So I could really meet the sacredness of every moment, regardless of what I was doing in every moment, whether I was sleeping or doing yoga or meditating or brushing my teeth or washing my hair or trying to find my lost scrunchie. It was whatever I was doing was secondary to how I was being in that moment. So feel that what you do is secondary. How you are, the beingness, the level of the awareness, the presence, this is first. And what happened for me was this ability to touch the sacredness of every moment, of everything, regardless of what I do. Because the being is first, and the being is sacred, because I am sacred, because this life that lives me is sacred. And I want to read another one. I think it's my favorite poem that I wrote there. I wrote about maybe 10 poems. And this one is, I think, my favorite. When people will ask me how it was in that darkness, I will tell them that it was a bit hard and a bit normal, a bit extraordinary and a bit boring. And that was one of the first things that I said to my guide as I left the space at the before the sunrise of day 7. I left the space, and then couple of hours later, I met my guide, and one of the first questions that she asked me was how it was for you. How was your retreat? And I told her, it was actually very extraordinary and completely normal at the same time. Some of you know my phrase, ordinary magic, everyday magic, ordinary magic. And the experience of darkness took me into the extreme of this, into ordinary magic, that everything felt so sacred, like I already said, and so extraordinary and so normal at the same time, even boring sometimes. So when people ask me, some of you asked me how it was to go out, how it was to experience the life again after the retreat and what has changed, then I feel that one of the things that changed was that I took this practice of ordinary magic really into the extremes. And I'm taking it into the extremes every day now. That life is miraculous and amazing and extremely normal at the same time, all the time. And being able to to feel this gives me so much of what I call and what I teach the grounded spirituality. So not flying high up and not searching for these extraordinary states of mind and extraordinary states of heart and not searching for this life and for these moments to be constantly like mind-blowing and heart-blowing and ecstatic, but really feeling grounded in what I already shared with you, that everything is equally sacred, everything is equally important, and this life itself, I think that's what I want to say, that this life itself, on every tiny little moment, is so very special already that there is no point in trying to make it special. That's the ordinary magic for me. So I remember this moment when I came out, when I opened the door, and these first moments, these first beams of light, not even the sun, because it was before the sunrise, but it was already getting bright, and having these first moments of light and opening the door and looking into the world and seeing the trees and the leaves and the sky, it all felt so beautiful, so magical, and so normal at the same time, like almost boring. It was one of the weirdest moments of my life, getting out of the darkness, because it felt super profound, and at the same time it felt like, oh, okay, that's it. It's just this. It's so normal that it's almost boring. And at the same time, I had tears coming down my cheeks from seeing the trees and seeing chestnuts. The retreat was in a chestnut forest. So there are lots of chestnuts on the ground. And I remember I saw these chestnuts and I cried, because I thought to myself, what kind of amazing creatures are these? Like, they are spiky and shiny and brown inside. Like, this is so, I've never seen anything so beautiful in my life. And in the same moment, at the same time, with equal truth, I could feel that this is super ordinary. It's just a chestnut. And it feels just so normal to be able to experience all this. It feels like the greatest privilege of my life to be alive. And it feels so normal and so ordinary. And this feeling has stayed with me for, how much is it, like around 3 weeks after the retreat. And I still have this, that I look around and I'm like, this is just my normal life. And at the same time, having the recognition that this normal life is so amazing, so sacred, so unique, so important, that I don't need to try for this experience, for this very moment. I don't need to try for this to be something else. Another question that I got, an experience that I would like to share, is what I was thinking about. What people think about in darkness when you have endless amount of time, when it's just you and yourself, then what kind of thoughts your mind produces. And I realized that the mind and the thoughts that it produces, that it's almost like different radio stations, that I could listen to different radio stations. That's really how it felt for me in darkness. So what I was doing, and I feel that this is one of the things that I was not ready for about a year ago, but now I was ready for it, to be quite radical in what kind of thoughts I'm thinking, what kind of, metaphorically speaking, what kind of music my radio station is playing. So remember, I told you were asking me if I was afraid, and I told you no, I was not afraid. But it's also because I didn't listen to the radio station in my mind that would make me feel afraid. So I remember there was this one moment when, for whatever reason, I started to think about all kinds of, scary movies, scary stories in my life that I heard. And I just realized, like, oh my God, I'm in complete darkness. Like, I feel like somebody's standing behind me and it feels scary. And then suddenly my mind started to produce all kinds of memories and all kinds of images from all the scary movies that I watched in my life with this. And I started to feel this feeling like somebody's behind me, and that feels scary. And like, what if somebody's in the darkness? And I just from the meta level, like a level above my thoughts, I realized with this very powerful question, who is thinking your thoughts? There is somebody there who is thinking the thoughts. There is somebody there who can change the radio station to a different radio station. And then when I realized that my mind is producing thoughts on its own, because that's the nature of the mind, it produces thoughts. When I realized that my mind is producing thoughts that make me feel uneasy, that make me feel scared, that make me feel like, oh, what if somebody's there? I realized that it's like me listening to a song in a radio that I don't like. And that the simplest thing, the easiest thing, and the most reasonable thing that I can do is just to change the radio station into a different one. Just like when you are driving a car and you listen to a radio and a song comes that you don't like, or a news, and you don't want to listen to the news, then you just switch to a different radio station. And that was one of my main practices in the darkness, when I had all the time in the world with myself and with my thoughts that kept producing themselves, because that's the nature of thoughts, to really be quite radical about what kind of radio stations I'm allowing myself to listen to. So in that moment, when I realized that my mind is producing thoughts that make me feel afraid, I was like, no, I don't want to think these thoughts. What kind of other thoughts I want to produce? What kind of voices in my head I want to listen to? And I would immediately go into one of my statements of truth, one of my codes, like, my heart is open and free. I am love. I am loved. I am universe's favorite child. I am safe. I am so safe. I am always held. I am held by love. I am getting relaxed, feeling the loving arms holding me. I am safe. I am giving myself to the darkness. I am giving myself to love. And I would very often say this to myself out loud, changing the frequency, changing the radio station, starting to produce different thoughts. And because it was for such a long time, for 5 full days, without any external stimulation, then I could really experience how the mind operates, how the thoughts think themselves, and how I can so easily so easily start thinking different thoughts. I had this experience before. This is also something that my mentors were teaching me. This is something that I, as a mentor, teach to my clients. But in darkness, this was taken to the extreme, that it really is up to me what kind of dialogues I have in my head. And if I don't like the dialogue in my head, what if it can be as easy as switching to a different radio station? It really is that easy. It takes practice, but it really is that simple. Maybe it's not always easy because we have our thinking habits, but it is simple. The principle of it is simple. So my intention and my practice, one of the practices in the darkness, was to keep myself aware of the activity of my mind, what kind of thoughts my mind is thinking, and what kind of thoughts I want my mind to produce. And then another thing that I realized is that a mind is like a husky dog, like a husky puppy, that if you don't give it anything to do, it will destroy your house and, dig a hole in your sofa, metaphorically speaking, like a husky dog that is left alone in a house. But if you take care of your husky dog and you give him things to do and you take him for walks, then it's the most amazing companion. So what I would do very often is I would literally give my mind thoughts, give my mind tasks in the darkness, for example. And I was experimenting with that a lot. For example, I was telling my mind, write a poem for me. Create a beautiful poem that would be the most touching, amazing, beautiful poem. And that's what my mind would do. It would create beautiful poems that I would later write down. Give your mind things to do, because if you don't, then it will find things to do. It will find thoughts to think. And sometimes these might not be thoughts that you want to have in your head. Some of you asked me if I was bored. And there were moments when I was. And also to be able to experience boredom and to really feel that this is just a sensation, this is just a feeling, and it's nothing wrong about it. That it gives liberation, it gives freedom. A lot of things that I do in my life are about freedom, regaining my freedom, feeling free, living with a heart that is open and free. And one of ways to regain freedom in my life was to realize that I can be safe with every emotion and I can be safe with every sensation. I can be safe feeling heartbroken, feeling stressed, feeling disoriented, feeling afraid, and I can be totally okay feeling bored. I am safe with myself always because I have a solid foundation of knowing who I am and knowing, fully trusting that I am held by something so much greater than me. This is what my life is rooted in. So when I was experiencing boredom, it was actually, in a way, a very beautiful experience. Something that I believe we as humans not often get. Because what do you do when you start to feel bored? And boredom creates some sort of discomfort. So what do you do when you start to feel discomfort? When you feel like nothing's going on? When you feel like you are wasting your time? When you feel like there is nothing to do? In most cases, what I do, and what I see people around me do, is we usually grab our phones. When you are, I don't know, waiting somewhere in a queue, when you are sitting at the airport waiting for a plane, even sometimes when you are waiting on a red light, nothing is going on. There is no stimulation. Remember, I started this live stream with this idea of how we are overstimulated from the outside. So when there is nothing going on and suddenly you feel bored, this causes discomfort, and we very often try to entertain ourselves somehow. Some people, oh my God, myself included, to be honest, some people sometimes take their phones even to the bathroom, because we don't want to be without the phone. We don't want to be with ourselves without any external stimulation, and to feel bored for even 1 minute, because it feels like it's unbearable. But you're going to be okay if you are bored. In fact, allow yourself to be bored. Sit for 10 minutes without doing anything. Not even trying to meditate, not even trying to quiet your mind. Nothing, just nothing. For 10 minutes. Allow yourself to be bored. Allow this to be, so unbearable and so annoying and so like, oh my God, I'm wasting my time and I'm wasting my life. So many moments in that darkness, I had thoughts like this, like, what I'm doing here? Like, I'm wasting my time. Like, what is it even about? Allow yourself to feel this and to discover that you're going to be okay. Because you're going to be okay no matter what. This is like really holding the keys to your own freedom, realizing that you're going to be okay no matter what. With every sensation, with every emotion, especially the emotions that you are trying to avoid so much because they cause some sort of stress or discomfort or contraction. Actually sitting through these and realizing that you're going to be okay, that you are in fact okay, that this is like holding the keys to your own kingdom of freedom. So if you want to have a little experiment, then allow yourself to be bored. Allow yourself to feel like you are wasting time when you are doing nothing. Allow yourself that. Your life is not going to end. You're going to be okay, I promise. Give yourself that experience, just out of curiosity. And I had many moments like this in darkness. I had the most profound experiences, like I said, the deepest meditations, like really altered states of consciousness. And 1 hour later, feeling bored and feeling like, how many more hours? Like, what time is it? Is it time to go to sleep yet? Or is it not? And going through all this and realizing that I'm okay no matter what, and that all this is equally sacred, and that all this is equally important. And I want to share with you the last realization, a huge one for me, the one that I'm still digesting. I realized it after I had left the darkness. I had one day of integration, and I realized, I actually wrote it down, I'm going to read it for you. I relied on the clock to tell me if I've had enough sleep, on an empty plate to tell me if I'm full, and on the mirror to tell me if I'm pretty. And suddenly, when I didn't have my eyes, when I couldn't rely on my eyes, I had to rely so much more on my inner feeling. And this is really when I realized that, oh my God, on everyday basis, I rely so much on my eyes instead of checking with myself. For example, I wonder if you do it as well. You can let me know in the comments. When I wake up in the morning, I don't do it anymore. That's one of the changes after the darkness. But I used to check what time it was. And based on that information, I would decide if I had enough sleep or not. So let's say I woke up and I felt pretty rested, but it was 5 o'clock. Then I would be like, okay, I didn't have enough sleep. I need to sleep more. Or I would wake up and I maybe didn't feel super rested, but it was 9 o'clock. And I would say to myself, okay, I had 9 hours of sleep. That's enough. I need to wake up. In the darkness, I didn't have that. I had to rely on my feeling of feeling rested or not rested, sleepy and tired, or relaxed and rejuvenated. And I didn't even know until that experience how much I relied on the clock to tell me, now it's time to get up. Now it's time to go to sleep. No, you haven't had enough sleep. Yes, you've had enough sleep. That the clock was telling me instead of me telling me, instead of me relying on the signals from my own body. And that was huge for me to notice this. And that was like really scary actually for me to notice this. Or how much I rely on what I see on my plate to decide if I'm full or not. In darkness, I didn't have that experience. I had like a box, like a Tupperware box filled with food, and I more or less could feel how much food it was. But I was eating until I felt that I didn't want to eat anymore, and then I was putting the box aside. And then when I was getting hungry again, I would take that box and eat again, sometimes just 2 spoons of food, until my body told me, my inner feeling told me, okay, you're full, you don't need any more. And then I would put it aside. Whereas on everyday context, I realized that how much I rely on my eyes. I look at the plate full of food, and then I eat the food, and I see an empty plate, and I decide based on what I see that I've had enough food, that now I'm full. You see how, like, I find it so subtle, because it really is subtle, but you see what I mean? And check with yourself if you do that too, that you rely on the clock to tell you if you've had enough sleep. You rely on what you see on your plate, whether it's full or empty, to tell you whether you're full or not. Or that you rely on the mirror to tell you if you're pretty. I remember one of the first powerful questions that came to me in the darkness during one of the meditations on day 1 or day 2 was this question: if I cannot see myself in a mirror, then how do I know if I am pretty? And I had this the most extraordinary experience with myself of kind of like feeling into the sensation of being pretty or not pretty, feeling beautiful or not. Where does it come from if I cannot rely on what I see? Take that as an experiment as well. Don't look in the mirror, but just close your eyes and look within and feel yourself. Do you feel pretty or not? Do you feel beautiful in this moment or not? How do you know that? How do you feel that when you cannot see yourself in the mirror? These were really extraordinary moments for me, extraordinary realizations, to see how much we rely on what we see. Which of course makes so much sense. This is one of our most important senses, the sight. And funny enough, for example, when I teach Lomi, I very often tell my students to close their eyes, especially if we work on something very deep and very precise, like deep joint rotations. And sometimes the arms and legs are in really weird angles. And then my students see something and they are panicking of like, oh my goodness, this arm is going to break. And I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. Just close your eyes. Don't rely so much on what you see. Rely more on your inner feeling than what your eyes are telling you, your physical human eyes, because they are so limited. And this is also what darkness taught me. What my eyes see, what my physical eyes see, what I am able to see with my physical eyes is just a fraction of what is. And it can be so deceiving and it can be so limiting. I'm going to read a comment. It is interesting how much eyes are dominating in our life. Yes, I still check my clock and plate, but I'm free from mirror. Okay, amazing. Amazing to notice this, right? Amazing to notice this. How much we rely on the information from the external world instead of checking with myself first. Do I feel rested? Do I feel that I've eaten enough? Do I feel pretty? Thank you so much that I could share with you this experience. And I would love to hear what you are taking from it. The one little thing or few little things that stayed with you. Some little inspiration, maybe one sentence that really stopped you. And I wonder if darkness retreat is something that you would like to do, if this is something that you feel is for you, or maybe you have total clarity that no, this is not for me right now. If you have more questions, if I haven't answered some of your questions, then you can just send me a private message and I will be happy to share more. But for now, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I just feel so grateful that I could put into words some of the things that I experienced and see them again and feel them again and share them with you. I love you dearly. Aloha. And until next time. Bye bye.